Satguru Pravidam Bandham About the BBC message, Srila Prabhupada says, Satguru Maharaj stands first, because he always submits the report. In the rough and tumble years of early ISKCON management, Satguru Maharaj dependably performed his prescribed duties. He traveled, he preached, I sometimes got to travel with him. He guided and inspired others and held the standards. He dealt with the tough guys in his own and his high-powered colleagues on the BBC. But he was always the sadhu and the writer. And now in these elder days, Krishna has given him a quiet sadhu's life. No management, no tough guys, except holiday. Just a focus on hearing and chanting, and writing, of course, and a saintly devotional life. He's expert not only in writing Krishna conscious books, but also in submissively reading them, hearing them, and honoring the opportunity to think about and be blessed and enlightened by their words. From the earliest days, as we've heard, he gave his heart to Srila Prabhupada and served him. If you love me, I'll love you. And so Srila Prabhupada trained him, endowing him with all favors bestowed upon the gentle disciple. And so it's our good fortune to hear from him and serve him and honor him and love him. Hare Krishna.
Master Maharaj, who would like to speak? Guru Maharaj, would you like?
I have interesting memory at Goswami when we were in Dallas. I don't know how many times, but we did the drama, the Sunday Feast, the two many times. Especially remember the one we did with those names. There was the king and the four Brahmins. Krishna visited both of them at the same time. It was a very quickly reversed and interesting experience. It was very fun. So, I'm a little overwhelmed to see all these books. It's really an amazing thing. But I just heard that he's reading or hearing from Chaitanya Charitamrita 4 hours a day. And that reminds me, Prabhupada, when he was on the ship, he said that Chaitanya Charitamrita was his only solace. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the last days of his life. Also, he was relishing Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that reminds me of that. So we're all very fortunate to have these books. I was just telling someone that the Lingamrita, that should be required reading for everybody before initiation. Really no problem. But all these, like these memories we just heard, they're very simple, we should relish them. We'll find them throughout all the books. The Lingamrita is a super masterpiece. I saw a few people picked up this session. I hope everybody has read it and they keep reading. I read it quite often. Not start to finish with different parts of it. So thank you for allowing me to say something. I'd like to hear others do that more on the screen.
Steve Howard, your old friend, a writer and poet himself, with a warm heart and a wry sense of humor. You shared your poetry with him. He pronounced it fatally provincial. That was not very warm or funny. But his words, though a bit rough, he was from Brooklyn after all, were true, though maybe not in the way he meant them. To him, writing that always had Krishna in the picture, be it poetry or prose, was provincial, limited in its scope. It lacked a global reach, yet this so-called limitation was actually a transcendental ornament. So let's set the record straight. In your childhood, you ice skated on Jack's Pond and were convinced that the neighborhood reality you knew then was as real can be. But soon that world expanded as sound wave after wave was broadcast from the WOR radio tower and captured by your radio in the nighttime privacy of your teenage room. As raconteur, Gene Shepard rhythmically told stories, asked real-life questions, and offered an invitation to enter a world far beyond Jack's Pond. Then came collegiate literary studies, and the scope of the world widened even more. After that, provincial life faded further into the past when you set sail in the Navy and crossed the Atlantic Ocean, leaving the days at Jack's Pond far behind. But that too was not a forever duty. Once honorably discharged from the bowels of the USS Saratoga, you set a new course with no detours and headed directly to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, where a mix of artists, immigrants, and young seekers had congregated. And then, everything changed when you saw the small piece of paper taped to the window. Classes in Bhagavad Gita, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 p.m., transcendental sound vibration. The matchless gift, the forever duty, the forever duty. You have kindly told us your story from then on, as only you can tell it, with honesty, generosity, and love. And hearing it from you has enriched our lives so much. It is hardly a provincial tale. Rather, your holy feet have traveled to 5 continents, and if you include the reach of your writings, Africa has certainly been touched. And maybe some transcendental traveler has touched the southernmost continent, carrying a Prabhupada Lamrita in a backpack while trekking to see penguins sporting on Antarctic ice. That's possible, but even if the Lamrita hasn't gone there yet, it has certainly been read and reread around the rest of the world, and it has delivered Srila Prabhupada to so many readers. And the wonderful effect of reading the Prabhupada Lamrita is that it melts readers' hearts. So, the glory of your, quote, fatally provincial writings lies in what happens in readers' hearts. Sadhavo hridayam mayam. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. Home is where the heart is. And apparently, Lord Krishna is provincial himself and is unwilling to take a step out of his Vrindavan homeland, where we have heard everyone loves him and he loves everyone. Thus, as a writer in Parampara, you are unwilling to write about anything but Krishna, both directly and indirectly. So your friend's critique is really praise, glorifying your transcendental provincialism. As you have said, the artist knows his purpose. May we follow you faithfully from Jack's Pond, wherever you lead us, on the path back to God. And by your grace, may we always feel the presence of Krishna everywhere along the way. Thank you.
Dear Guru Maharaj, on this auspicious occasion of your appearance today, I speak to remind myself of your transcendental position as my eternal spiritual master. I pray that you will be pleased with me and enthused to continue to inspire me with your instructions. Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto says, the Supreme Spiritual Master is Krishna, who is known as Chaitya Guru. This refers to the Super Soul who is sitting in everyone's heart. He helps from within, and he sends the Spiritual Master, who helps from without. The Spiritual Master is the eternal manifestation of Chaitya Guru, or the Lord within the heart. Guru Krishna Rupahan Shastra Pramana Guru Rupa Krishna Kripa Karina Bhaktagani. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in his form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. The relationship of the spiritual master with the relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of God. It is a Chintabheda Vedatattva. Everything is simultaneously one and different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states, the spiritual master is as good as God because he is the very dear servant of the Lord. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto, it is explained that the spiritual master worships the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord is the worshipful God. Therefore, the spiritual master is called Sevaka Bhagavan, the servitor of Bhagavan, and Krishna is called Sevya Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is to be worshipped. Lord Chaitanya says, Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh. The bona fide guru is he who advises his disciples exactly in accordance with the principles spoken by Krishna. And you, dear Guru Maharaj, you speak exactly what Srila Prabhupada has spoken. You stick to the path made by the previous acharyas. You carefully execute your duties following your predecessors who delivered the spiritual message unbroken. Whatever actions performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Bhagavad Gita. You are such a leader who teaches by your practical behavior. Your daily schedule is constructed to facilitate the fulfillment of the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and to enhance your meditation on Lord Krishna. You read and write and sometimes illustrate your realizations and instructions for your followers and disciples. You understand that your only business is to spread Krishna consciousness around the world. Always thinking of Krishna, you beat the Brihat Mridanga, writing and posting Krishna Katha in your daily journal. Srila Prabhupada encouraged you to write, and you have pleased him by instructing masses of devotees with your honesty and clarity. You alone were commissioned by the GBC to write the authorized biography of Srila Prabhupada, and you were empowered to create the timeless masterpiece, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Thus you are the spiritual master of the whole world. As such, I would need unlimited heads and unlimited mouths to describe your unlimited glories. But I am simply one small servant of my most glorious spiritual master, and I have limited intelligence. Therefore, I rely on the words of the previous acharyas to help me glorify my eternal spiritual master, and I beg to remain your humble servant, Shamar Guru.
These are my most humble obeisances. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Guranga, happy Vyasapuja. The prayers to Lord Shri Krishna by the Nagapatnis are prominent in the Krishna book. It is easy to miss Kaliya's prayers, which come after his wives. They are much shorter and always seem to fly under my radar. I listened to this chapter recently, and I heard something in his prayers I failed to take in on previous readings. Kaliya prayed, My dear Lord, I have been born in such a species that by nature I am angry and envious. Being in the darkest region of the mode of ignorance, I can relate. To make matters worse, I went to law school. Kalia continued, Your Lordship knows well that it is very difficult to give up one's natural instincts, although by such instincts, the living creature transmigrates from one body to another. I am born as a serpent, therefore by natural instinct I am very angry. How is it possible to give up my acquired nature without your mercy? It is very difficult to get out of the clutches of your Maya. By your Maya we remain enslaved. My dear Lord, kindly excuse me for my inevitable material tendencies. You can punish me or save me as you desire. As Lord Krishna was merciful to Kalia, you have been merciful to me. You have excused my inevitable material tendencies and how I get lost in them, and engaged me in service since we first began to write to each other in 1978. More than excusing those tendencies, you have seen past them to who I want to be, and that has been my saving grace. Sometimes I follow my nature down a path I should not walk. Recently, I became engaged in an exchange with a person claiming to be a senior devotee. While asserting that status, he stated he did not believe that a human could serve as a spiritual master. He rejected the Guru as the middleman and having power of attorney for God. He quoted Lord Chaitanya about the power of chanting and how one could be delivered to the spiritual world just by the Mahamantra. His angle was that one need not have a Guru to derive the full benefit of chanting. I sent him various quotes on the necessity of having a Guru, but he either refused to read them or allow them to relate to his claim about chanting being enough. I pointed out Srila Prabhupada's example of giving the Mahamantra through initiation and how the Guru-disciple relationship is a fundamental pillar of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. I pointed out he was quoting Lord Chaitanya, who himself accepted Vishwara Puri as his Guru, but he was having none of it. Later than I should have, I realized he must have been badly hurt along the way. His pain had led him to anger and then rationalized envy. It caused him to think he knew better than his Guru and to reject the very concept of having such a person in his life. As Prabhupada wrote in Krishna book, one cannot reason with an envious person, so I stepped away from the conversation. As I did, I thought of how I could not live without that which he rejected, a relationship with my spiritual master. Does he know what he is missing? I don't think so. I don't see you in the cold terms he used, middleman or power of attorney. I see you as proof of God and his kindness, not as a barrier on my way to him. Your tolerance of me, like Krishna's tolerance of Kalia, is something for which I will always be grateful. It has been my saving grace in this life. I don't have faith in you as my spiritual master because Lord Krishna said to accept the Guru. Instead, any faith I may occasionally have in the Lord is because of you. Srila Prabhupada wrote, our first duty is to satisfy the spiritual master who can arrange for the Lord's mercy. A common man must first begin to serve the spiritual master or the devotee. Then, through the mercy of the devotee, the Lord will be satisfied. Unless one receives the dust of a devotee's lotus feet on one's head, there is no possibility of advancement. Unless one approaches a pure devotee, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I thank you with whatever sincerity I can find in the midst of my mundane tendencies and sometimes overly enthusiastic material nature. With love, your servant and friend, Kirtan Asaka.
Accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to you. Poor Maharaj, you asked me to write an offering, and I didn't. Because I didn't have time. And as I thought that, hear myself saying that, I cringe because I said the same thing recently when you asked me to write some words on chapter 9. I didn't have time. So I think this theme of time has come to me for these few words to you. And firstly, I want to thank you for gathering us together, giving us the time to interrupt our own lives, to have kirtan, meditate on Prabhupada, his mission, and Krishna. Recently, you spoke to me on the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 and were saying that, telling me how one can love Krishna, how one can know Krishna through love. Today you spoke of the invitation Prabhupada gave you. If you love me, I will love you. I thank you for responding to that invitation and taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada so that we can be here today.
like in that Bhagavad Gita chapter, diving prakritam ashritai, taking shelter of the internal divine energy of Krishna, which is love. That is how to know Krishna. And in your response to Prabhupada, in your loving response to Prabhupada, you have created a shelter for me and for all of us. And so I think the theme of shelter and time are what I want to thank you for. And for Viraha Bhavan, this shelter that you took of Prabhupada, you have extended to me here in Viraha Bhavan. You've created a spiritual submarine, which is like it navigates material time in an extraordinary way. When I arrive, it's like I wake up from a dream. My whole past life is forgotten, all my duties in Oxford, I forget everything. There's no past, present, or future. There's just Viraha Bhavan time under the shelter of Radha Govinda, Gornitai, Lord Nrsingadev, and Srila Prabhupada. And this shelter creates the rhythms of life. And my little life of material time, my little time evaporates. I know you've had a very difficult year because one of the great pillars of strength, Bala from Trinidad, is not with us this time for Vyasapuja. But I was struck by how, despite this, the greater rhythms of big time, spiritual time, Viraha Bhavan time, Krishna's time, continue in the ashram, continue to provide us shelter and invite us to know Krishna, to love Krishna. Central to that, I think the belly of the day is the reading, 2.5 hours of getting to know Krishna in his name, his fame, his devotees, his pastimes, as we together share Chaitanya Charitamrita and now the Chaitanya Bhagavata. And it is extraordinary that our day is getting to know Krishna through those who know him. And I thank you for this shelter in spiritual time in Viraha Bhavan. And then thirdly, I just wanted to thank you for extending this shelter of spiritual time beyond Viraha Bhavan ashram to the whole world in now the republication of your books on Srila Prabhupada. I think everyone will laugh when they say you want to go out as a Prabhupada man, as if you have ever been anything else. So I thank you for that. And for also the reading, extending the Viraha Bhavan community, Shastric sharing to a broader global community, extending that shelter of spiritual time, getting to know Krishna, inviting us all to love Krishna and to know him, and knowing him to love him more through these readings. And if any one thing will stick with me, which links with the beginning of this, is I never have enough time, it's how you end these reading sessions. You say, time is up. And so with my offering to you, Guru Maharaj, and I pray that my time in the material world is also up. And that it will never be up. Thank you.
All glories to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I got 3 minutes to move on. And this is an opportunity to both honor and glorify the spiritual master. We don't like being glorified. But it's my duty, it's my job, it's my duty. So the first time I met you was in 78. And after I met you, you packed my altar. I told Srila Prabhupada about me. And I said, this Das Goswami. I said, he's nice, but I don't know him. But I told him, I said, Prabhupada, and when he speaks, he keeps saying, Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada said. I said, Srila Prabhupada, I think you may think what you say is the best. He said, please help me know this true Das Goswami. The next time I saw you, I knew you were my spiritual master. Time has passed. You changed my name. You gave me the mantra to chant in connection. And everything has been different. So, as you know, through the Gita, there's something he said all the time, touching them. He said, just hear. You have blessed us with your ability. You're always asking us to hear. And then we navigate through the books with us. The Bhagavatam, Veda Trom, some of the touch our home, he said, so super, because you're submissive. Your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors, bestowed upon the gentle and learned disciple. Now please find all that you've learned from them. Srila Prabhupada says in purport, the secret to success in spiritual life is to get the genuine blessing of the spiritual master. I feel blessed every day, buddy. I'm just working, trying to reciprocate and become a proper disciple. But as Mother Anuradha said, as I move through the books, the happiest time of my life now, for the last 2 years, I get to see you every day, practically, if I show up. You're there, and we're reading to you. But then something wonderful happens. It's your time to read. And when you read, it's like no other reader. When you read, it's right in the heart, on a good day for you. Those words that you're reading from the Gita, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's you going right to my heart. And I feel that. And so, it's so special. And at the end of all that reading, what the mother just said, you say, time's up. And when time's up, the most wonderful thing is then you say, I want to thank the readers. I want to thank the hearers. And then you say, thank you, Guru Das from Washington. Thank you, Mother Shilavati from Arda. Thank you. And you begin to go down the list. You can't imagine when the disciples, when we hear from our Guru and hear you call our names and educate us, it's so wonderful. I'll try to keep on. Thank you so very much. All glory to you and all glory to your God.
All glories to you, all glories to Sri Prabhupada.
As I stumble my way along the path towards devotional service, you have always been and still are so patient with me, so kind and so forgiving. You have accepted the most menial and obscure of services from me. One time I gave you a bus stop. How is he going to Krishna-ize this, I thought. But sure enough, true to your form, a transcendental bus stop was born. You installed it in your garden in Wicklow, and this memory is indelible always in me. Dear Guru Maharaj, I pray to always serve you with love, Guru Maharaj, and honor God as a Satsvarup Das Goswami one. Thank you.
Namo Vishnu Daya Krishna Vasari Krishna Satsvarup Das Goswami Name. Satsvarupa Vidamande Viditam Sadhgusha Dear Guru Maharaj, right from the outset, I admit that quite frankly, I am unfit to be standing here before you, and the very fact that I am here is truly the miracle of your mercy. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat describes the Lord's continuous Maha Bhava ecstasies, one after another, day and night. His displays of emotion were as unique as they were indescribable. Everyone present became stunned and overwhelmed. This was the Lord's preferred method of fulfilling his mission to overflood the world with love of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his internal opulences to a select group of his devotees, and he gave the people of the world the absolute greatest gift, Harinam Sankirtan.
the spreading of the holy names. Guru Maharaj, your gift to us is just as transcendental and earth-shaking and deep. Instead of exhibiting unlimited manifestations of ecstasy, your ecstasies are within your books. You have produced over 200 books of Krishna consciousness, and in each you have invested your personal ecstasies, your profound love of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada famously said, if you want to know me, read my books. And as one of his most attentive, intelligent disciples, you completely absorbed this mood when you wrote your books. If we want to know you, read your books. The challenge of a lifetime, you say, read Prabhupada's books and my books. Each of your books has the potential to impact a person and move him or her towards Prabhupada and Krishna's lotus feet. Just as Lord Chaitanya would teach a grammar class and prove how Krishna was the essence of every word, every syllable. The important through line of your many books is the absolute essential nature of the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. Your constant devotion to and loving dependence on Srila Prabhupada in your books and artwork is the reason devotees aspire to follow in your footsteps, and the reason why we gather here and attend to honor you on this most auspicious day of your Vyasapuja. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for giving me my spiritual life, the holy name, and the process of devotional service. In so many ways, I fail to act on your simple yet sublime messages and take so many wrong turns due to my irrational stubbornness and willful ignorance. Yet you constantly lift me up and take the essence of what I offer amidst the falsity and blackness and my preference for illusion. So the only real prayer available to me is to please, as you desire, request of your Prabhupada and your Sri Sri Radha Govinda, give this feeble beggar's heart the strength of will to seriously aspire for eternal service at your divine lotus feet. Your foolish but grateful typist, Gurudas.
Well, I have a couple of memories from this past year. One was from the 50th anniversary in Boston of Radha Gopi Vallabha, and Guru Maharaj, they got Guru Maharaj to speak, because that's, you know, he was president there, founded the temple, and there's that famous picture of him participating in the installation of Prabhupada. So Guru Maharaj, at one point, he invited two other senior Prabhupada disciples, Samanti and the devotee, I can't remember his name. He just Soma, thank you. Oh, it went out of my head. Yeah, Soma. And so they were speaking together, and you know, I'm good friends with Soma, and they were just talking about the old times, you know, the installation and life in the temple there. And it was just so, it was like warm. You know, they were just remembering, it shifted, at least to my view, of them remembering the relationship with Guru Maharaj as the temple president, and they were younger devotees, and he was facilitating them. And I was just watching their exchange. You know, I hadn't really seen them with them. And I could, you know, obviously it's 50 years later, but you could sort of pull out, you know, what the dynamics must have been like. They were going back in time and remembering it. And it really made a bit of an impression on me. How, you know, Guru Maharaj just spoke about his earliest days, but boy, it really shifted very quickly into this mood of providing shelter to others to come to Krishna consciousness. And I really felt that in that exchange, how they were appreciating, and that made an impression. And then I recently came across, I think it was a 1971 Vyasapuja book to Prabhupada, and it was the Boston Temple, and the unique feature was they had, you know, the typed out offerings and then sort of the signatures, you know, they put that in there as a graphic. And I was looking at the Boston Temple at the time. It was about, Guru Maharaj was there, and there was about maybe 5 or 6, initiated devotees, but there was about 25 like bhaktas and bhaktins there. It was like full of new devotees, it seemed to me, from that offering. And so again, as a sense, he was just, as a service, he was just gearing into providing shelter for others to also take on Krishna consciousness. And then I get another memory. So it was Prabhupada's disappearance day in Alachua, just a month ago. And, I had a little exchange with Guru Maharaj, about, perspectives on the 5th canto and observable astronomy, the whole thing, how they're presenting it. And so when Swaha, Ambarish's wife, came up to speak, I paid a little attention and, just speaking nicely about Prabhupada and, his disappearance and what he means. And then she quickly shifted to the Lilamrita and how she felt so connected to Prabhupada through the Lilamrita. And okay, that's great, we've all heard that. But then she started working on shifting Guru Maharaj, how his writings have really helped her connect. And okay, so she's getting really into it a little bit now. And then she started naming off all the different books here in the stack, the letters and the memories, how it really was, she really felt strongly connected because this is Prabhupada's disappearance and she's remembering. And then I was thinking, wow, is this Alachua or is this Stuyvesant Falls here? This thing going on. So it was interesting. So that was, the books definitely have their impact. Particularly, I think for all of us, particularly, I really enjoy the Prabhupada recollections because it's Prabhupada and also that personal connection as he's experienced it and sharing it. And I think that's Prabhupada's legacy as well, an important part of it. All, not just, all of the disciples, but Guru Maharaj took a special interest in making himself available that way. So thank
you. I'll just tell a little story. I was lying on the floor in my sleeping bag in the winter of 1978 in January or February, and the temple president came up, and I was always struggling because it made a lot of offenses and everything. I was pretty much always struggling. And temple president came to my room and he said, Muktabandi, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to recommend you for second initiation. And anyway, I was glad. I didn't care what he said, but I was just glad. I knew Guru Maharaj was our zonal acharya, and I really liked that. I knew him and very much admired him for a few years before, and I was really glad when I heard he was going to be our initiating spiritual master for Boston. So anyway, leading up to when I got initiated, then second initiation, then Guru Maharaj, he said that some of us in that category of being first initiated by Prabhupada would want to see him as spiritual master, and some would not see him exactly in that way, but concentrate on Prabhupada. And he said you can see me, however, in either way you want. And he said that because I got initiated in 1976 when there were already so many devotees, and I never dreamed that I'd go into Prabhupada's room and talk to them. I never did, of course. And but Guru Maharaj, he said, being when Prabhupada has so many disciples and you're a new disciple, it won't be easy for you to go in and see him. But if I'm going to see him, and I say, come with me, I'm going to see Prabhupada, and you'll be able to go right in. So, and tell that story because it's probably the most important instruction that I concentrate on. So we're all in that category. We go with Guru Maharaj, we go with our spiritual master and he can take us into Prabhupada.
Krishna is always concerned that devotional service and love of Godhead is distributed in this world. It's a statement in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this world has no meaning unless there's love of Godhead. So Krishna sends his pure devotees, sometimes he comes himself. Srila Prabhupada himself, even Narada Muni talking to Srila Vyasadeva, on the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the name, fame, form of the unlimited personality of God, is a different creation. So just then and there, Prabhupada was predicted 5,000 years ago to come and write the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada even said of himself, Krishna told me to come down, you just write your books and I'll take care of everything. And Prabhupada said of himself that I think all of you were sent to take birth in the Western countries to come forward to assist me when I came. So it's certainly a very transcendental plan that you were one of the first devotees to join Srila Prabhupada in the beginning at 26 2nd Avenue. It's a very great privilege to be one of the first devotees who Prabhupada utilized as like building blocks, the pillars to build his movement with his senior and leading and most sincere and dedicated devotees. Yet at the same time, it's quite a heavy responsibility. So you've done such exemplary devotional service for the last 55 plus years. And as Jayadvaita Maharaj was saying, doing heavy GBC duties and management and so many things which arguably, or perhaps you could say, wasn't your nature or intention to do. But you've been very much blessed by Srila Prabhupada to continue the disciplic succession for us, your disciples, and especially with your books, to give Prabhupada's instruction and make his guidance available for everyone. There was just something that I just read that one very not so important devotee said, how can I please you, Srila Prabhupada? What can I do to serve you? And Prabhupada gave an amazing answer. You can do something that I cannot do. You can go into the future because you will live and etc. through the generations. So thank you very much for all that you've done for me, for us. Bhakti Granta Nanai Punyam Bhakti Granta Shikshitam, writing all of these books to continue the line of disciplic succession from Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.
I worship Shri Radha Damodar, Shri Gauranitai, and Srila Prabhupada, and all the predecessor acharyas, that they may shower their causeless mercy upon our spiritual master, that he remains with us happy, healthy, and long time, so that we can have our association of our spiritual master. Second of all, I would like to give some practical experience that I saw our Guru Maharaj in the early days of when I came to first time to America. I met Guru Maharaj in Philadelphia. Guru Maharaj was at that time the GBC to Mid-Atlantic. At that time he was also Guru. And when I met Guru Maharaj, after coming from New York to Philadelphia, Guru Maharaj gave me a big hug, and after that he said, I was very much concerned about you, that you are coming all the way from India. That's the time I realized how Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarisya vadhu sakalana mahata yoganashta parantava. Parampara praptam means we all receive by the causeless mercy of Guru and Krishna through the disciplic succession which is unbroken. That's the time I realized actually what Krishna says, that the relationship between Guru and Krishna and relationship between spiritual master and disciple is actually it is unbroken. That's the time I realized. Second of all, when I came after Guru Maharaj touring from Mid-Atlantic, my service started to Guru Maharaj from there. I was still going through jet lag and I was kind of spacing out a little bit. And Baladev, Vyasapuja Prabhu and others, they were serving Guru Maharaj. And when I came to Gitanagari, I went and I saw everything is simple, and then Baladev Prabhu was taking me inside and he was showing me what to do, what not to do. I was given only 3 minutes. So, when Guru Maharaj was taking rest, and there was a bed which goes all the way and was latched on the wall. So Baladev showed me just how to lift it up and just latch it on the wall. So when I went, and I was so skinny and tiny, and I was trying to lift it up and just mount it on the wall, and it was very difficult, and I was asking, Baladev, please come and help me. Please come. Guru Maharaj used to get up between 2:30 and 3. And before that, we have to be ready just to go inside and mount the bed right on the wall and clean up everything and put everything together. And while he was in the bathroom, and I was trying to do that, and I was not able to. And when I called, Baladev was coming and he was watching me. And do it, that is your service, you have to do it. so I was not able to. Then my dear God brother, Baladev Vyasapuja, he showed me, okay, that is little tact, you have to be tactful. So I lifted it off and I put all my energy and just mounted and then latched it. And finally I did it. And just in this way I continued my service to Guru Maharaj. And then, that very same day when I saw Guru Maharaj, the prasadam, Guru Maharaj was coming, just he was not taking any, I was looking for cushion. Actually, he was not taking any cushion, just he was sitting, he was taking his pillow and putting it to the right side and leaning towards the pillow, and then the plate was served. I was serving the plate. And then I served the plate to Prabhupada first and then Guru Maharaj. Prabhupada's plates were small, and I served Prabhupada first and then offered my obeisances and came back to take the plates, and then served Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj was so particular, and he saw that one item is not served to Prabhupada which I have. I was shocked, there's so small plates. And Guru Maharaj saw that and immediately ran and brought that item and put it in Prabhupada's plate, and again I paid obeisances, offering to Prabhupada, and then Guru Maharaj started taking the prasad. It's not that easy, friends, my experience. It's not that easy to serve the spiritual master. It's so difficult. And second time, and when I came, Guru Maharaj was already sick. And one day I went to his room and I saw his face was red like a bimba fruit. And I was asking Guru Maharaj, how was your health? I was very shocked and shy. Came from India, new India young boy. And when it was, yes. And Guru Maharaj said, I'm not that good. And he went to the bathroom and he vomited in the sink. And then I came to Baladev and I was talking to him.
what am I going to do just with that? So I didn't know just because Guru Maharaj quickly washed his face and came, he was sitting just, and in his room, and then I went, I took a bucket, and then after that, I took two plates, and then on the bucket, I just started taking the vomit, put it in the bucket and washed it very nicely. And after that, I have been requesting Baladev that let's take Guru Maharaj to the doctor, he's very sick. And Baladev remote control was with Baladev. Whatever he said, that was happening. So what happened, I took several stops and then I went to Baladev. I put it over there, right there, it just slipped from my hand. Baladev was like 20 times more heavier than me, I was a skinny boy. And I started punching him, like this. Please take Guru Maharaj. I started crying and punching him. So this was good. I have so many nice experiences with Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj in the beginning, because he was so sick, we were serving him different, like medical masala. And then I was making at least 8 plates raw vegetables which Guru Maharaj was taking. It was so difficult. Guru Maharaj,
Obeisances to Guru Maharaj. Serving you at Virar Bhavan this fall, I encountered your daily schedule. It reminded me of how great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Vinod Thakur had daily schedules to accomplish much in the service of the Lord.
Bring your mic
I'm sorry. Chanting japa on the early morning, hearing Krishna Katha for 2.5 hours, offering literature for the benefit of humanity, are the important activities of your day. Thus you stress these activities by your personal example. And because of your regulated life, your servants also have to regulate their lives. Let's just bring us to a higher level. I enjoy serving you by proofreading your books. I put my favorite sections of your books in my journal. This time I included 34 quotes from your collected articles in the Bhakti Godhead magazine alone, and then a bunch from the Free Rat Journal. I just wrote a few that really inspired me because they inspire other people. And he talked about pessimists and optimists. He said that optimists criticize the devotees for pointing out that life is full of misery and that attempts to enjoy it are ultimately frustrating. The optimists feel the devotees are falsely denying themselves the joys of life. Pessimists, on the other hand, they criticize the devotees for being naive. They consider spiritual activities to be impractical for solving the world's problems. And then you analyze the actual story. When in Krishna consciousness is actually both pessimistic and optimistic. He's pessimistic about material enjoyment, but he's optimistic about serving Krishna, about the power of that service to provide the satisfaction that your life promises but doesn't deliver. In Satisfaction Guaranteed, you describe Krishna seated in our hearts as our best friend. He knows the many sufferings we have undergone and which no one else can either understand or care about. And he sympathizes with us in those sufferings. He appreciates us. He knows how nice we are. To appreciate Krishna in return and to please him is the greatest happiness in life. It is the greatest source of personal satisfaction. One who has realized this satisfaction is said to be Atmarama, self-satisfied. Such a person needs no further support in this world. And finally, short and sweet. This was called true love. If we don't love God, we must love something less. Therefore, everyone should take at least the first steps toward developing his love for God. The ultimate goal of life should not be left in the hands of a few rare saints. Thank you for giving us so many inspiring words in your many books, and I'm glad to have some small role in your production team, and I hope to be always engaged in your service. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.